Welcome back into the Sportsmemo NFL Every Game on the Board podcast, where we got our closer, Robbie Veno, in. We're going to finish out the NFL card here. Robbie, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am good today, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. What's on your mind as far as this weekend? We got championship weekend and the NFL. This is the last podcast, I guess you could say, for the NFL. And then we'll do the last podcast for college football as well in a separate podcast. So we got a lot on our plate, but you feeling all right?
Yeah. Everything's good, but it's a great weekend. I like this weekend. I'm a traditionalist at heart. I love the bowl season, but second to bowl season, this championship week is really good. And I like the fact that other conferences have extended out now, Drew. We got a first as far as Sun Belt play is concerned with a championship game. I think adding these things are nice.
Yeah, and we got the rematches as well. But let's talk some NFL here. We got starting 3-6-5, and then we'll finish out the card and through the Monday nighter. We got Denver, Cincinnati. Looks like Denver, the Broncos, laying 4.5 at Jazz right now on the road. 45 being the total, Robbie.
Yeah, it's a tough break for Cincinnati, right? You get A.J. Green back into the lineup this week, and at the same time, you've lost Andy Dalton for the season. Last week's thumb injury puts him on IR for the rest of the year, so that means the quarterbacking duties go over to Jeff Driscoll, who came in last week, goes 17 of 29, $155, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. It's just a shame for Cincinnati, a team that's kind of a sinking ship at this point in time, but still mathematically alive in the playoff hunt. And now they'll have to do it without their starting quarterback. I don't know that Driscoll is going to be able to revitalize what was going on in Cincinnati earlier this season. Obviously, the defense has a lot to do with that as well. The defense just has not been good all season long. It's an elimination game of sorts here, Drew. I guess you could call it that because both of these teams sit at 5-6 in the standings. Winner stays alive. Loser at 5-7, I would believe, can think about the postseason without any playoffs, going home for the postseason. And like I said before, since he's a sinking ship, but Denver's really been on an ascension lately. You take a close look at what they've done, and I know they're kind of under the radar, but as far as we're concerned, betting games and recommending games to clients, Denver's 5-1 against the spread last 6 games. Important number there. Only because when you look at their list of opponents, that 5-1 against the spread becomes even more impressive. Through that string, they've played the Rams, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Chargers, and the Steelers. 5 playoff teams. Of those 5, they covered 4 of those. The only game they lost to a playoff-bound team as we sit right now would be the game they lost to the Houston Texans 19-17. So, Denver's been really impressive. The schedule certainly lightens up now with Cincinnati. You could consider this a major step down in class from what they've been playing. So I think Denver may be a bit unrecognized at this point in time, but may be headed for a late season charge. To go with that 5-1 against the spread, how about 5-1 under the total? The defense has been pretty good for the Broncos. The offense has remained methodical and not too explosive, although against Cincinnati, I feel like any team can be explosive. So we'll see if Denver puts more points up this week. Other side of that point spread coin real quick, Cincinnati 1-5 ATS their last 6 games. But because of their lack of defense and because of Andy Dalton continuing to put up points, they're 4-2. Over the total in their last 6. So a little contradictory trend there as far as totals are concerned. I think Denver, based on personnel, based on the way they're playing, certainly a pretty good side here, but we've seen an increase in the number. I think it went from 3.5 all the way to 5. A little bit of a dead number, but do you trust a team with a methodical offense on the road laying 5? In this situation, maybe you do, Drew. We'll see how Jeff Driscoll fares, but I'm sure he didn't want to be thrown into the fire against Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and the Denver Rush.
Robbie, we got 3-6-7, 3-6-8. LA Rams at the Detroit Lions. Rams laying doubles on the road here. We got 10 at most shops, actually a 9.5 at Greek. 55 being the total, Robbie.
And great news for them that they get cornerback Aqib to lead back this week. Almost certainly on a snap count Don't expect him to play all 4 quarters, but he'll round it to shape. And, the defensive secondary, Drew, over the course of the time that he's been out, has really been victimized by opponents. Now, Detroit with Matthew Stafford, always capable, but recently not very good on the offensive side of the football, somewhat due to injury, somewhat due to the trade of Golden Tate to the Eagles. But when you take away 2 of their 3 starting wide receivers from when they were hot earlier this season, Marvin Jones out on the injured reserve list the last couple of weeks, remains out. As I mentioned, Tate traded, and it leaves the bulk of the passing game, receiving-wise, in the hands of Kenny Golladay, who's become a beast. But one man, he really can't do it alone. And when you're trying to keep pace with the L.A. Rams, you need to play offense. Just not sure that Detroit, now minus Auburn running back Kerryon Johnson, has it in them to keep pace with L.A. Obviously, LeGarrette Blount getting the bulk of the carries we saw on Thanksgiving Day. That Matt Stafford's really his only 2 options become, as far as passing is concerned, they become Golladay and Eric Ebron at tight end. Have to believe that Los Angeles is good enough to keep those 2 at least contained. Detroit only averaging 16 points a game over their last 5. The offense has just gone right in the tank. When you're playing L.A., one more time, Drew, when you handicap it, one of the first things you have to ask yourself is, can the other side keep pace? And should Detroit get down 14-0 here, I would just be surprised if they're able to. I know it's a home game, and in the NFL, you really don't want to lay double digits on the road. But if there's anybody capable of covering that type of number, it would be the Rams. I would probably look that way. Not thrilled about it, because I'm not thrilled about laying 10, but I would probably have to look to the Rams in that game. We're at the point of the season here where this becomes the stretch run. 4 teams to get into the playoffs and 4 teams to either make improvements or fall by the wayside. The one thing I think we have to watch right now would be the Ram defense, which in my estimation, trying to be proactive, I think is going to become better and better as weeks go by. I think the talent will start to put up the results that we expected earlier. So for me, like I say, it would be Rams or nothing in that game.
Last Sunday, Robbie Veno nailed his 5-star top-rated NFL play on Sunday. Also nailed his 2 3-star plays. 3-0 sweep of the board last Sunday in the NFL. And guys, you can check out his 3-day, 7-day, 30-day, or 90-day all-access on sportsmemo.com. And if you use the coupon code VENOHALF, that's VENOHALF at checkout, you can get any of those all-accesses right now this weekend for half off at sportsmemo.com. Coupon code VENOHALF. Next game up, Robbie, Arizona at Green Bay. 44 the total. Looks like the Green Bay Packers laying 14 at home.
Yeah, and they're in a must-win situation, right? We've heard a lot this week about the Green Bay Packers. We've heard Aaron Rodgers go through the list of their remaining games and explain to people what they have to do in order to get into the playoffs. It's a long road for the Pack, but it starts here. 14's a lot of points, though, Drew, even against a hapless team like Arizona. For Green Bay, the troubles go beyond their record and the fact that, they sit in the position that they sit today as an outsider looking in at the playoff race. It's got a lot to do with personnel, and it remains bad as far as their injury situation is concerned. The wide receiver and defensive back positions, they've been a mess for a while, and they'll be a mess when this game starts as well. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, lack of receivers, has hurt throughout the season. Jimmy Graham not being healthy a lot of the time has hurt as well. But the DBs have been banged up all season long. They remain banged up. You can add to that mix now some troubles across the offensive line. Now, you probably get at least 4/5 of the offensive line, but it's an offensive line that is injury plagued, and you're going to have a couple of guys in there that could easily go out of this game. So protection might not be great. Opening up holes for the run game might not be great. The elixir for that could be the Arizona defense, which seems to have maybe began to show us some signs of erosion here the last few weeks. I'll put it that way. 30.8 points per game is what they're allowing over their last 5, including a couple of 45-point efforts. Phillip Rivers absolutely torched this defense last week. I forget the exact number, if it was 23, 24, 25 consecutive completions. I'm pretty sure he ended the game 28 of 29. But the Cardinal defense finally collapsing under the burden of trying to be on the field almost all game because the offense can't get anything done. For Green Bay, like I say, on both sides of the ball, having this team show up could be a nice elixir for them to get back on the winning track. You add to it, Drew, you got a team coming from Arizona into a game that's projected to have 33 degrees and snow showers throughout the contest. How thrilled is Arizona going to be there? I know they're all professionals, but not real sure. I think they can put up enough fight to sneak under 14, but I don't think there's any way Green Bay loses this game. I can't play Green Bay at that price because of the injury situations. A couple of fluke plays. Josh Rosen may hit a pass to Larry Fitzgerald. The defense could come through against a banged-up offensive line and get a strip sack or something of that sort, and covering 14 becomes troublesome. We saw earlier this season where a number like this was concerned when Minnesota had Buffalo at home, and Buffalo won that game outright. So not interested in laying 14 here. If I had to, I'd probably take with a very weak Arizona team.
Robbie, we got back-to-back 2-touchdown spreads here. You don't see that every day in the NFL betting boards. You also don't see an NFL team laying 2 touchdowns on the road, and we got it here. Kansas City at Oakland, seeing 14 at Bookmaker, 14.5 at Heritage, 55.5 the total.
Yeah, not real sure I could look any way in this game, Drew, except over. Probably ignore the side. I understand Oakland has been a hot mess all season long, but their last 2 games, I think at least they showed signs of life. They win that game against Arizona on a walk-off field goal, battle of perhaps the 2 worst teams in the NFL this season. But last week, the 34-17 win by the Ravens is a little bit deceptive. The Ravens came through with a couple of late touchdowns in the fourth quarter to get that number. That game, if memory serves me, was 20-17. Oakland had just scored a touchdown to cut it to a 3-point deficit early fourth quarter. So they were in that game for the majority of it on the road against a pretty good Baltimore team. I think that offensively against this KC defense, they're capable of putting up 21 points. That being said, Oakland's defense, what it is, Kansas City is, they're capable of 30-plus on anybody, probably 35 here. Like I said, we're looking at 55.5 from a totals perspective. Don't see any reason why it couldn't eclipse that number. I know it's come down a little bit off the opener of 56. Perhaps people seeking some value there in their numbers. Maybe people have numbers that suggest that it won't get that high, but I can't play it that way, Drew. Where KC's concerned, it's too easy to score. It's too easy to score against Oakland. If the Ravens can put up 34 on their home field against this team, you have to believe Kansas City's good for the same. So for me, long story short, it would have to be that total over 55.5. Will you allow yourself the key number of 56 to cash a ticket? I think that would be the way I'd go.
Robbie, we got the New York Jets at the Tennessee Titans up next. 40 being the total. Looks like 7.5 to 9. Some opinion in the marketplace, however, kind of the dead area here when you're betting the NFL betting boards. But either way, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, how you looking to bet it?
Well, I would say that one of the most overlooked things right now in the NFL, Drew, is the Tennessee offensive play calling. It's gotten better. They've gotten far more diverse. They've gotten far more I can't really call them explosive, so I won't, but you get where I'm going here. They're more capable of moving the ball in chunks rather than 4 yards in the cloud of dust that they used to be. And they keep getting positioned here by odds makers with totals that are significantly low. Last week, was it Monday night they played Houston? I forget which night it was when they played the Houston Texans. But that game easily went over I think it was 42.5 and bet down considerably. There was a lot of under money in that game. But I want to give credit to Matt LaFleur, the offensive coordinator of Tennessee, and the fact that he's utilizing Marcus Mariota's skills. The fact that Marcus Mariota last week was a bit questionable. This week is a week healthier. Corey Davis is becoming a downfield threat that they thought he was when they drafted him out of college. And the Jets have one of the worst pass defenses going at this point in time. If you can't get to the quarterback and you're the Jets, and they don't really do it with 4 down linemen, they have to do it through blitzes that Todd Bowles designs. Remember, he comes off the Rex Ryan tree, so he knows a lot about blitzing. But, boy, if you can stay upright, which I think Marcus Mariota can in this case because he's also got the mobility factor in his favor, I'd expect Tennessee to put points on the board. 40.5 in an NFL game. I mean, with two teams like this, just doesn't seem like an awful lot to ask. Not interested in laying a bunch of points with the Titans. They're still not to that point where you can trust them, so maybe the dog is worth somewhat of a look. But the Jets, even with Josh McCown at quarterback, have the ability to move the football. Remember Robbie Anderson, their top receiver, a little banged up last week, better this week. For me, that number sticks out. 40.5, low number. 24-17 gets you paid in this game, and I think that's the way I would look.
Robbie, we got 2 more games on Sunday. Minnesota at New England, 49.5 with the Pats laying 5 in Foxborough.
Yeah, this one really, I don't know, Joe. I went through a lot of back and forth on this one, so I don't know that I have a really good recommendation on this game, either side or total. I think I see signs of life defensively where Minnesota is concerned. Now, even the best defenses in the NFL have a hard time containing New England when they have all their weaponry available to them on the offensive side. Rob Gronkowski looks like he's back to a questionable/doubtful status here for this game, so maybe the big tight end doesn't go for the Patriots in this game. But I think I would lean toward the Minnesota side, even though it's in Foxborough, which is very tough. Excuse me. And the fact that Kirk Cousins and that offense are very capable of producing points. I think that, again, 5's a dead number, but I think to sum it up in a real short sentence here, that Minnesota's defense to me is coming on, and that's going to be the key in this game. I think I would look that way, but again, don't have a real good recommendation. There's too many counter arguments in that game for me.
We got San Francisco, Seattle. Robbie, Seattle off of the big win, 46 being the total. Looks like Seahawks laying 10, 9.5, depending where you're shopping.
Excuse me, Drew. Trying to battle a cold here today. They're playing great, the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that this is a situation, to me, where they can go out and absolutely finally pound somebody. They've been in these close games, but offensively, Russell Wilson has been great. They have found the running game with Chris Carson. The fact that Doug Baldwin came back healthy makes that receiving crew very difficult to contain. And I don't know that San Francisco has any defensive pieces to stop Seattle from moving the football here. Other side of that coin would be I'm a little surprised at the way Seattle's been able to defensively stay in games. Last week they outscored Carolina. It's a young secondary with a lot of unproven guys back there, but they've been good enough. And against San Francisco, you can be good enough because they don't come at you with a ton of weapons, especially through injuries this season. So, in my estimation, Seattle's ready for a real breakout game where they put both sides together in one contest. The fact that they're home, extremely helpful as far as I'm concerned. Any type of weather that happens in Seattle favors the Seahawks. There's no question about it. So for me, I'm a little bit confused at the fact that, in the fact that a couple of places have gone to 9.5 in this game. I would choose to lay it with the Seahawks. Oof. Having a hard time getting that one out, Drew, but I would be on the Seahawks.
That's totally fine, Robbie. Take your time, man. And, guys, we got one game left here, the Monday Nighter. Robbie Veno off of last Sunday's 3-0 performance. He hit his 5% play, both of his 3% plays. So sweep of the board if you were on that last weekend on Sunday. You can use the coupon code VENOHALF, that's VENOHALF, at checkout for half off of any of his all-access services at sportsmemo.com. That will include the 3-day, the 7-day, the 30-day, the 90-day all-access, all for half off today, tomorrow, through this weekend. So check that out at sportsmemo.com. Huge value there, up to $250 worth of savings if you want to choose the bigger packages. Robbie, we got Monday, December 3rd. We're already into December, last month of the year, man. 2018 went smoking fast. 379-380, Washington Redskins at the Philadelphia Eagles. 45-45.5 being the total. Looks like we're seeing sixes pretty much across the board. Seeing a 6.5 at Heritage, 6.5 at Intertops, but most shops just sitting at 6. Actually, Pinnacle moved to 6.5 as well. That's the Eagles laying at home in your neck of the woods. You want to finish us off here with Washington at Philadelphia?
Yeah, I'll see if I can squeeze one more out here, Drew. The NFC East certainly going to be decided by these divisional games. Dallas came through last night, which puts pressure on both of these teams to win. I don't think you'll question effort in this game. Usually you never do in a divisional matchup. I think this comes down purely to personnel. Both sides have their difficulties. There's no doubt about it. Through injury, the Skins' offensive line has been decimated. Through injury, the Eagles' secondary has been decimated. But I think even with Colt McCoy at quarterback here, since Alex Smith is gone for the season, Washington's got enough ingredients to move the football successfully against Philadelphia through the air. Colt McCoy, obviously a capable backup, and enough of a running game here to, like I say, establish a balanced offense. For Philadelphia, I think the problem has been well documented the last 3-4 weeks. They have no vertical threat. For Washington, which is the better defensive team in this game and certainly an outstanding secondary, they're going to be able to do what most teams have done to the Eagles and creep to the line of scrimmage. I think you might get a lower scoring game here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Redskins were capable to pull this one outright. I do think 6 points. I think the line move is correct. I think 6 points still worth taking. And like I say, not scared off by the fact that Colt McCoy is the quarterback here. I think he's more than capable of engineering a victory here. Both sides need it. Both sides come to play. But I think when you weigh fundamentals against one another, because I don't think there's any situationals here that really factor into the handicap, when you just weigh fundamentals, the personnel on the field, I think +6 is an awful large number. I would be on Washington.
All right, Robbie, liking Washington there. And, guys, that will finish it up for the NFL portion of the Every Game on the Board podcast. And not always every week, but we'll actually be right back with finishing off the college football Every Game on the Board podcast. We usually do it on Thursday. Had some technical difficulties, so we're going to finish it off today. So stay tuned for that. Robbie Veno, thanks for plugging through there at the end. And guys, remember the coupon code VENO half at checkout for any of his all access for half off. Guys, we'll be right back with college football Every Game on the Board.